My name is Brianna Lewis. And if you're thinking this is going to be some sweet, celebratory story about family and graduation, think again. I learned long ago that the people who claim to love you can also be the ones who cut the deepest. I remember driving into Houston that day, the city stretching out like it had nothing to hide, and yet I felt it, every familiar street, every turn, heavy with expectation. I carried my graduation cap, my diploma, a carefully wrapped cake I'd baked with my own hands, proof of years I had fought through alone. I wanted this visit to feel like a homecoming, a recognition of the work I had poured into myself, into my future. But home doesn't always recognize you. Sometimes, home waits, quietly, until the moment it can remind you of your place. That day, the air in the backyard shimmered with sunlight, laughter, and the smell of fried chicken and cornbread. But it wasn't warmth. It was a spotlight. Every smile, every comment, every glance aimed at me was a reminder of how small they wanted me to feel. I could sense it in the way they shifted when I walked in, how the fork paused midair, the way the cake sat untouched on the table, like it belonged somewhere else. I didn't know it yet, but that backyard, that cake, that moment, they were the first cracks in a life I had built around the idea of love that demanded too much. And those cracks? They were about to become the foundation for something I had never imagined. Freedom. Tyler's laughter cut through the air before I even realized what had happened. One careless swing of his little hand, and the cake I had carried so carefully tumbled to the ground, frosting and crumbs scattering across the patio stones. My chest tightened, not with surprise, but with that familiar, sinking recognition. I was the punchline. Oops. Watch it, Brianna, he said, grinning, as if it were a game. And just like that, my family joined in. Sharon clapped her hands in mock delight, her smile too bright, too sharp. Keisha leaned back in her chair, laughing so hard she could barely breathe, like I had just performed some terrible comedy for their amusement. I wanted to say something, to scream, to shove the cake back at them. I wanted them to see the years I had worked, the late nights, the sacrifices, the quiet moments where no one watched or cared. But I didn't. I stayed still. My fingers curled around the knife I had been cutting the cake with, the only piece of control I could grasp in that chaos. I let the silence grow thick around me, heavier than any words. I felt it in my bones, my anger, my grief, my refusal to perform for them. Without a word, I turned and walked away, letting the knife sink into the grass beside me, leaving the mess and the laughter behind. Every step I took away from them felt like a promise, a quiet reclamation. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need their acknowledgement. All I needed was the clarity that the life I was building didn't belong on their stage. That night, back in my small Houston hotel room, I sank onto the bed and let the events replay in my head, each laugh, each sneer, each glance a sting I couldn't shake. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, and I didn't even want to look. But I did. The message from Sharon glared at me in the dim light. We've chosen to sever all contact. Stay away forever. My chest tightened. The words weren't just cold. They were precise, calculated, like a ruler snapping across the space between us. I glanced at Keisha's name lighting up on the screen below, the little heart beside it mocking me, as if approval for cruelty could be celebrated in the same breath. I sat there for a long minute, just staring, listening to the quiet hum of the hotel room, the faint traffic outside. My first instinct was disbelief. Then, a flicker of clarity. I could feel something shifting inside me, small and sharp and undeniable. This wasn't just anger or hurt. It was recognition. Recognition that nothing I had done, no sacrifice, no achievement, no quiet loyalty, had ever mattered to them. I typed one line in reply, simple, deliberate, and heavy with the weight of self-preservation. Noted. I pressed send. And for the first time that night, I felt it. The tiniest spark of control, a tiny pulse of calm in a body that had been used to bending. They were cutting ties. Fine. I had already begun the work of reclaiming myself. By the time I set the phone down, I knew one thing for certain. The rules of their game no longer applied to me. Back in Dallas, the city felt different. Sharper, clearer, like it had been waiting for me to notice. I unpacked my bags. leaving the remnants of Houston's noise behind, but the laughter, the smirks, the echoes of that backyard clung to me like smoke. I couldn't shake them. I didn't want to. It was in the quiet of my apartment, going through old files and statements, that the pieces started to click. Years of payments I had made, mortgage contributions for my parents, the SUV for Keisha, bills I had thought of as shared responsibility, were never shared. They had been mine alone, masked under the guise of love and duty. Every number, every missed opportunity for my own life, slammed into me with the weight of betrayal I hadn't fully allowed myself to feel. I sank into the couch, letting it hit. Love had been used as a leash, and I had carried it willingly. But that leash? It ended here. Every late night I had logged at work, every promise I had made, every small kindness I had given in expectation of acknowledgement, I saw it for what it was, a chain that had quietly bound me to people who would never respect me. And in that moment, something shifted. I wasn't just angry. I wasn't just hurt. I was alert. I was awake. I felt my own heartbeat, steady, insistent, a reminder that my life was mine. For the first time in years, I saw the path clearly, away from obligation, away from their control, and towards something that belonged entirely to me. I called the bank the next morning. My hands trembled slightly as I spoke to the voice on the other end, but my words were firm, deliberate. I set an appointment with Mr. Thompson, knowing I needed someone steady, someone professional, to help me untangle what had been woven into my life for far too long. Sitting at my kitchen table that afternoon, I opened my laptop and drafted the message that had been forming in my mind for weeks. I typed slowly, deliberately, removing my name from the mortgage, the SUV loan, every financial obligation I had carried without acknowledgement, without thanks, without even recognition. Every sentence was a small act of rebellion, a step toward freedom, a reclamation of the life I had been told I owed them. I paused, letting the weight of it settle in my chest. For years, I had measured my worth by their approval. For years, I had bent, adjusted, and sacrificed. And now, with a few keystrokes, I was undoing it. The calm that followed was unlike anything I had felt in years. It wasn't flashy or triumphant. It wasn't the kind of relief that comes with applause or validation. It was quiet, insistent, deep in my bones. A reminder that I could protect myself, that I could set boundaries, that I didn't have to apologize for choosing me. When I hit send, I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes. The first real calm I had felt in a long time filled the room, and for the first time, I imagined what it would be like to live without the weight of their expectations pressing on me. The office at the bank smelled faintly of polished wood and coffee, the kind of place where nothing moved too fast and everything mattered. Mr. Thompson greeted me with a calm nod, his presence steady, grounding. He didn't rush me, didn't lecture or question. He simply laid out the documents, one by one, letting the weight of each paper speak for itself. As I signed my name over and over, I felt the invisible chains slip from my shoulders. Mortgage release, SUV release. Every loan that had tied me to a past that wasn't mine, they were gone. Each signature was a small exhale of years I hadn't realized I had been holding in, a quiet letting go of control they had never earned. Protecting yourself is the only way to teach others respect, Mr. Thompson said, almost casually, and I felt the truth of it settle deep in my chest. I had been taught to endure, to absorb, to forgive without question. Now I understood, endurance without boundaries is not strength. It's surrender. I left the bank carrying nothing but my keys and a small folder of completed paperwork. The sun outside felt warmer somehow, the air lighter. I could feel it in the way I walked, the way my chest lifted slightly, the way my thoughts stretched into the space around me. For the first time in years, I felt untethered. Not reckless, not careless, just free. Every step toward my car echoed a truth I was finally ready to live. I belonged to myself, and that alone was enough. The messages came first. Short, sharp, dripping with accusation. Then the posts appeared online. Half-truths and distortions spun to make me look small, careless, ungrateful. My mother's words were weaponized, repeated, shared. Keisha's little tags and comments made it feel like the world was laughing with them, or worse, laughing at me. For a moment, I let it sting. My phone buzzed relentlessly, each notification a tiny pulse of anger and hurt. I felt the old reflex kick in, the urge to respond, to defend, to explain myself. I wanted to swipe, to type, to fight, but the calm I had fought so hard to reach pushed back. At work, I carried the weight of it quietly, letting the world see only what I wanted them to see: focus, control, presence. Lydia noticed, as she always did, but didn't pry. Marcus and Elena checked in, careful and steady, their voices and support a soft counterpoint to the chaos online. I realized something then. Truth doesn't need defending. It doesn't need to be shouted over the noise. It only needs patience. Lies fade under the weight of facts, under the rhythm of steady living. I watched my notifications pile up, unchecked, and felt the unusual lightness of letting them be. I could no longer control their words, and I refused to give them power over my life. For the first time, the world could say whatever it wanted, and it wouldn't change a thing. My boundaries, my choices, my calm, they were mine. And finally, that was enough. The knock at the door was sharp, insistent, like the beginning of something I had been bracing for but hadn't wanted to face. When I opened it, Sharon and Keisha were standing there, storm clouds in human form, voices already raised before I had the chance to speak. Their demands came in a rush. Questions I didn't owe them, accusations I didn't need to answer, threats disguised as concern. For a moment, I felt the old panic rising, the one that used to make my stomach twist and my chest tighten. But I didn't let it take hold. I stepped back and let them push against my boundary, physically and emotionally, and held my ground. Calmly, I reached for my phone. "I'm calling the police," I said, my voice steady. Not loud. Not pleading. Just fact. Just boundary. Their outrage only grew. Voices overlapping. Insults spilling like water over a dam. I stood there, phone pressed to my ear, listening as the operator took down my statement. Every word I spoke was deliberate, every pause intentional. I documented their trespass, recorded the date and time, and held the line until help arrived. When the officers showed up, they didn't argue. They guided Sharon and Keisha away, their anger clashing with the authority I had quietly claimed. After the door closed behind them, I leaned against it and exhaled slowly. The room felt different, heavier in one sense, yes, but lighter in another. For the first time, I understood what it meant to defend not just my space, but myself. Boundaries were no longer abstract. They were real, and I had enforced them. The confirmation came in the mail a week later. Every document carefully stamped, every signature in place. I was fully released from every loan, every obligation that had once tied me to them. I sat at my kitchen table, holding the papers in my hands, feeling the weight of years lift like a storm breaking over a city. The online attacks slowed, then faded. The public lies lost their edge, replaced by silence. I didn't rush to celebrate, didn't feel the need to announce it. Freedom isn't loud. It isn't performative. It's quiet, steady, the kind of peace that settles in your bones and refuses to be shaken. I began rebuilding, not because I had to, but because I finally could. Work became a place of growth, not obligation. Marcus and Elena became anchors, friends whose support didn't come with hidden strings. I started investing in myself, in experiences I had postponed, in the life I had kept in waiting while carrying the weight of others' expectations. One evening, I stood by the window of my Dallas apartment, looking out at the city that had grown alongside me. White Rock Lake glimmered in the distance, a reminder that freedom has its own geography, its own pace. I realized I was no longer reacting, no longer bending to the whims of people who never saw me. I was moving forward, guided by my own choices, my own needs, my own sense of self. For the first time in a long time, I felt fully present in my own life. The past no longer dictated me. I was free, and it was mine to hold. A year had passed, and life in Dallas had settled into a rhythm that felt entirely my own. Work, friends, quiet evenings by the window. I moved through my days with a sense of calm I hadn't known was possible. Then, one afternoon, my phone buzzed. It was a simple message from Keisha. I'm sorry for everything. I stared at it longer than I should have, fingers hovering over the screen. The old part of me, the part that would have responded, that would have justified, explained, pleaded, hovered briefly. And then I remembered. All the years of bending, all the times I had carried their burdens, all the laughter I had endured as though it were deserved. I didn't respond. Not because I was petty, not because I wanted to punish. I didn't respond because I no longer needed their validation. The apology was theirs, not mine. My peace didn't require it. I set the phone down and walked to the window. The city hummed in the distance, full of life and possibility. I let the quiet fill me, let it settle around my shoulders and chest, and I whispered to myself, the words soft but absolute, "Welcome home, Brianna." For the first time, it wasn't a greeting to a place. It was a greeting to myself. The home I had been seeking wasn't in a city, a family, or a past I could never change. It was inside me all along, and now, finally, it was mine. Did you enjoy the story? If so, hit like, comment your thoughts, and subscribe. Thanks for watching Revenge with Keisha. See you next time.